Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first VET user group of 2023. My name's Adam. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager with the Priority Services team. And today with the panelists of Marita and Paul, we're going to be going down a slightly different road that we haven't been before with the user group. We're going to be kind of putting one eye to the future and looking at ways that we can help develop. Actually, I'll just share my screen. It's probably a lot easier instead of me trying to work it up. Awesome. Can everyone see my screen there? So the main thing that we're going to be focusing on today is how can I tailor my instance to reach my future educational vision for teaching and learning. So as you may notice that a few new features are coming out. One in particular I know that everyone's excited about, which is build on last attempt. I don't really like calling it bowler because I think it's going to be better than that, knowing our product team, right? They'll take something apart and they'll make it better. But we'll just use build on last attempt for the last little bit here. But I'm just going to put a show of hands. You can put this in the chat just with a yes, no emojis. I don't really mind. Who's excited about build on last attempt coming to Canvas? Yes. Oh, I got a yes. Wow. Okay, that's cool. That's real gangster. Yep. Students can't wait too. I bet you they can't either. That's all right. Oh, Joel, I love the thumbs up emoji. Awesome. Actually, if you've got the updated version of Zoom, sometimes your thumb will automatically come up now, apparently, which is very cool. Okay, that's really exciting. My next question is, how many of you are using new quizzes? Awesome. So those of you who are using new quizzes, you will have a very massive head start because build on last attempt is only coming to new quizzes. Okay. So what we're going to try and do today is, whilst we've got one eye on build on last attempt, there's also some new features, some of which you've never heard of, which I can officially talk about because we were told about them yesterday. So that's how fresh off the base this is. So we want to sit here and try and create an environment of like, if I need to make this transition, what's some other elements I can help transition at the same time? Because ultimately the real benefit in Canvas is creating scale. Okay. The ability to easily move content around Canvas, the ability to ensure consistency for trainers and assessors. For instance, I don't really think you're going to really enjoy having courses with 2 quizzing engines in it. Right? Like supporting that's going to be very difficult. Okay. The ability to leverage off scale. And that is one of the key things that we'll talk about. So please feel free, if you do have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to put them in the chat. Sai, if there's a really good question you think that's me, mate, do what you do best. Just interrupt me. You know, I like to talk. And we'll be able to bring that in as well. I'll also be bouncing some ideas off our panelists, Paul and Marita. Because I know, for instance, Marita is actually on a journey with one of these major products as well. And I know Paul is always dabbling around in Canvas as he likes to do best. So the way I would like to start with today's presentation is I'm going to start off with something very basic. SysIDs. Does everybody know what a SysID is? Okay, got a lot of yeses, got a lot of head shaking. Really, 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 really good. For those of you who don't know what a SysID is a unique code that identifies elements within Canvas. Okay. How does this help you? It allows you to bulk manage elements of Canvas using native Canvas format, such as CSVs. You can use APIs as well. Paul, you can correct me there if I'm wrong, but you can use and leverage and create using these particular. The key components that we need to focus on are user ID, which is the unique ID for all your Canvas users, your course ID and your section ID. They are also important. Now, I'm going to throw 2 more in here. Term ID, which is like your terms, and your account ID. So these are for root accounts and sub accounts. Okay. Now, for those of you who are integrated into student management systems, such as Job Ready Plus, VetTrack Cloud, VetTrack, WiseNet, for instance, you will find that a lot of this information is actually pre-filled from your integration sending things to Canvas. Now you might like, okay, Adam, why is that important? This is the reason why. The first one is subscription management. We've recently introduced the user suspended status, okay? Why is this status important? Because previously up until this time, you could only really have an active user or a deleted user. Now the deleted user system didn't work well because that actually removed the user's information from the Canvas UI. Not really good for audit, not really good if you have to go back and historically check these sorts of things. Recently, we've entered what's called a suspended status. Now, you can do that manually via the UI. Those of you who have ever tried to do that, that takes a lot of time, okay? For instance, if you've got a couple of hundred people and you need to do that, that's going to take you 30 seconds a click, all right? Using CSVs and using sysids, you could do your entire instance in 30 seconds, okay? The ability of scale of using sysids to control your subscription management, whether you're using a user subscription or an enrollment subscription, is very handy for that. You can also use it for course management. So in other words, you can stop individual enrollments. You can also change the course status. So in other words, we might have one course, we're going to start another one. We want to conclude that course, remove it from the teachers. We do that. You can also bulk upload access dates. This is good for terms, courses, and sections. And lastly, you can use it for role management. So this is to do with, updating admins. Or for instance, you might want to have a particular role in all your courses, like a teacher role or a special assessor role, or whatever that may be that doesn't come across from your student management system. You can all do this in bulk. Now, the other place where this comes in now handy is it actually helps you with reporting and search criteria. So admin analytics, I will talk about this a little bit at the end, but if you haven't turned this on in your instance, you should do. But what you will now see now is that as part of that, you'll notice that user IDs and sysids are now relevant in that particular search criteria, okay? It's also prominent in your admin reports. So if you've ever run a sys export report, especially, or a provisioning report, this is a key component because you can actually download that information from your Canvas, manipulate the status, and upload it straight away, okay? Only if you've got these sysids in place. You can also use sysids for your course search, people search, and also, if you want to, you can also add them into your gradebook filters, okay? So I don't know if any of you have been aware of that as well, but you can display sysids in the gradebook underneath the person's name as well. Why is all this important? It's going to sound a little bit unhumanizing, but a lot of people know people through IDs, right? They might not know the first name, they might know their last name, but we know that student in our system is 1143. Taking that over to a learning management and searching for 1143 just means the time it's taking to communicate as well. Now, I've got, Marita here, who's obviously working for TAFE, who has a lot of different users and relies a lot on integrations. Marita, do you do much manual manipulation inside Canvas using the sysids after your student management system has spoken to Canvas?
Oh, look, to be honest, and we don't do a great deal, but when we need it, we really need it. So for instance, everything we do is integrated with our student management system. That determines, open dates, closed dates, student status, etc. But there are times, like we know, when there are bugs, and so, or when there are updates in student management system. And so what we've been able to do is overcome that, or any development space that comes through that integration by having sys imports. So to be able to fix any bugs or overcome anything that happens through that space, that's been really good. The other thing too that we do is we did it to separate our merged accounts. That was incredibly helpful. The thing that could never be done was only able to be done because of that, because our systems say, no, these people are one person, and we're like, no, we want to treat them as two. So that was really useful. And the other thing that was with the sysids, we actually don't do anything without it, because we actually can't manage. For instance, I think there were 42 Stuart Jones in our organisation so far. So to be able to, if you search for Stuart Jones in our instance, you'll get 42 different matches, and I have no idea which one's which. So the SysID is obviously critical in that space. So
it's one of those sorts of things where most people, when they start using Canvas, you're using a lot of manual entry. But when the integration comes in, it's really ensuring having that in effect, because as you grow and you consistently engage with your student management system, you get the benefits of scale of doing these sorts of things around. And also things that I'm going to discuss a little bit with that new analytics, moving courses to different sub-accounts or moving to different terms becomes very simplistic. It's just basically like updating one column in an already existing sheet. Why is that important? Like if you want to report over different time periods, or you want to give permission to particular sub-accounts for particular regions, like that's something that's really important. So thanks very much there, Marita. Sorry, I jumped the gun there as I usually do. So awesome. So the other one I'm just going to spend on, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but terms and sub-accounts. How many people in VET use specific terms? And I don't mean like school terms. That's not what they are. Terms are a period of time. Okay. So, for instance, a year, a month, a quarter, a term. How many people are using terms consistently? And sub-accounts as well, I should say. Nope. Okay, cool. So terms represent a period of time. Unfortunately, in America, where the system was developed, terms don't mean what terms mean in Australia, like school terms, right? That's why a lot of people are like, this is designed. No, a term in Canvas is designed for a period of time, right? The reason is it features in all our reports, okay? It's pre-disclosed time. So what I always suggest to people, at least having like a year term and moving those courses into your year term can help you like at least prescribe specific timeframes for your reporting. And sub-accounts are also very important, especially if you've got multiple different admins. You can break your instance up into things like geography, organization, departments, educational offerings. For instance, that might be an advanced diploma. This might just be a diploma. And a new one that we've actually seen a lot of people coming in is corporate clients. So for instance, if a client's coming and looking to you for specific education, giving them their own sub-account where, a manager can come in, you can brand that sub-account specific to their industry and their business, and give them a real taste of what Canvas can actually do. But why is this really important? Once again, sorry, I don't know what's going on here. Okay. The one thing that's key about this is permission and management. Okay, you can give permissions to sub-accounts and root accounts. My suggestion to you is try not to give admin account access out at the root account level unless people really know what they're doing, okay? Otherwise, you do run the risk of people using functionality that they haven't been trained on, okay? I've seen it, I see it once a week, okay? I see it most commonly with things such as blueprints, okay? People not understanding the linking of those courses. Obviously, sub-account admins have the permission to do that, as well as course role access. Once again, terms and sub-accounts, where can they be used? Once again, these are searching criteria now for the admin analytics new. Once again, I will explain a little bit for this as well, okay? You can age the shirt. This feature features in all sub-accounts moving forward. And at the root account, you can actually search through specific sub-accounts as well. So breaking your instance up into like-minded areas can really help you drill down into what you're trying to figure out as well. You can also use this for admin reports, course search, and people search. And one very underrated thing for sub-accounts is LTI applications, okay? For instance, if you're using a particular LTI that you only want a particular group of students or a particular course to actually have, you can maintain that through a sub-account or even a particular course as well. I should mention that as well. But really important to understand that sub-accounts can help control what you want to do. So just something for you to consider. I know from a vet point of view, I mean, once again, I'm going to throw Marita a little bit under here, but you can just shake your head. I know that there's a lot of different areas broken up of TAS TAFE. So using sub-accounts really is a great way to kind of like silo particular business units or companies or geos or whatever that may be. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we actually use ours based on, so obviously we have, different teams. So we might have like a primary industries or a hair and beauty or business leadership and management. Each of those teams will have their own sub-account. Like you say, we actually hand out specialised admin roles for those sub-accounts. So people, they have, what we call our subject matter experts, so they can do some certain things, they can self-serve. So to the managers, so we do invest a lot of time in reporting training for those managers. We actually turned admin analytics on the other day, and the managers just love it because they have this visual dashboard, as opposed to before we were showing them how to export CSV reports that were a little bit, Excel-ish in their appearance, but yes. Without that, and each of our teams also have an under development sub-account, so that way they've got their active sub-account and then it's under development as well, so we can differentiate between the two. So it's just simply said, it's everything that we do.
Yeah. And Paul, everyone say hello, Paul. Paul, do you use terms and sub-accounts in your particular organization at all?
Sub-accounts, yes. And like a couple of comments were in the chat, we learned the hard way around that. And we just ended up with a huge mess in one main account with lots of different courses and versions and all sorts of things. So bringing sub-accounts into the picture has been really helpful for us in organising things. We basically organise it now by training package. So, for example, TAE has its own sub-account, and it helps us to stay focused on that. And we've also used it in the past too for, one of the points there on the slide was corporate clients. So if we've had particular groups with a large number of people coming and going in there, we've used that to organise it into corporate clients as well. So the sub-accounts especially very handy. I must admit, I'm guilty of thinking terms referred to school terms or, something like that. So hadn't really made use of that feature, but now you've shifted the paradigm in my head. I'm going to explore that a bit more as well. I think we've been using groups to organize different groups of people by periods of time. So yeah, need to look at that some more.
Yeah, and I think what everyone's just experienced here, terms relate to time, sub-accounts can relate to geo. There is no right or wrong in this. It's what works best for your business, okay? The main thing I will suggest though, is that sub-accounts more closely aligned to permissions, right? And users, whereas terms more strongly relates to time, okay? So when you're going through and building this, remember you can build multiple layers of sub-accounts. My things with terms are, try and keep them more generic as possible, okay? Like I say a year, just because I want to say, okay, all the courses that started in 2023, right? That's where I want to think. The further you drill down into it, the more and more terms you create. So when you go to report, you'll need to report on this term, this term, this term, and this term, and then you'll be combining information together. So sometimes it's better to be a little bit more open with the dates and also with your sub-accounts as well. But that's just something to consider as well. But thank you very much for the feedback. And there's some really great stuff in the chat as well. Yeah, perfect, Colleen. Yeah, exactly. Using it to lock off students' time access to courses. Instead of you going into every course and, putting that date in, if it's linked to a term, you just put in the end date being whatever it needs to be. And on that particular date, students just don't have access to it. Okay. It's a really great way to work at scale. Okay. We're now starting to get into the bowler start of the world. Does everybody know what an outcome is? Have you ever heard of it? How many people actually use them? Yes, thank you, Emma. You're gonna have a great time with this. I saw Maria shake her head. That's that's okay. This is what this is about. There's a really, really, really important reason why I brought outcomes in at this particular time. The reason is that I brought this in purely to discuss build on last attempt. The reason why I brought on build on last attempt is because outcomes actually, when you think about it, are more tangible to the way that you give out your teaching and learning, okay? Like, here is an actual item that this person needs to learn. There is complete, incomplete, satisfactory, not satisfactory. I'm not getting into an argument or a discussion with anyone about that. We're just going to leave that like that, okay? But what I'm actually saying is that you have a training package or you have a formwork that you need to ensure that your students are completing, okay? Outcomes are that. But there's something that's really cool about outcomes is that, and so you probably dealt with more clients with outcomes than I do, so at a much bigger scale, is that outcomes don't necessarily have to be purely training package related. They could be institution related. They could be client related. They could be behavioral related, okay? The advantage of doing this at an admin level is that if you build and import your outcomes at that admin level, it actually cascades down to all the courses below it. Why is this important, do you think? Accessibility is one thing. Yep. It's actually in the second point there. You can actually compare Claire, very good. You can actually compare that same outcome across your entire instance, across multiple students, across that outcome may transcend across multiple courses, right? I know for a fact, unfortunately, Carrie wasn't here, but her biggest piece of advice is that when she goes through and builds outcomes, she takes the training package, but keeps it very generic, right? In other words, I can chase this. Now, the reason why this is really important for build on last attempt is because of these particular things. In new quizzes, you have the ability to link an outcome to an individual quiz question, not only the entire quiz, right? So in other words, when your assessor's going in and marking that, it's actually automatically marking against that outcome, okay? You can also use this, and you more commonly may see this as well. You can see this in assignments to help your assessors and trainers with marking, okay? You can also see, we also have a really good article on there on creating an observation report in Canvas as well. And you can use outcomes across all assessment types. That's new quizzes, assignments, and discussion. But the really cool thing that I'd like to show is now, and this is the reason why, is that we've just recently completed this with new quizzes, is that these outcomes now tie back into what's called the Learning Mastery Gradebook. Has anyone heard of this? Does anyone use it? Would be probably a stronger point. Yes, Marita, thank you so much for some things. So the Learning Mastery Gradebook actually flips the gradebook on its head, right? It actually, instead of you looking at a competent, not yet competent, or a mark, it actually flips it on its head, and it actually says, how are you as a student or the teacher or assessor? How are they going against the outcomes that I'm prescribing that they do? Okay, it's all automated. If you're marking using outcomes, it's a very quick switch to turn this on. Okay, so one of the other things as well is that you may see it there, and I don't know if I put it in there. There are some really good features coming for outcomes to help us work out differences and gaps of where people are coming from. I really like setting up outcomes and rubrics, especially for vet, because the unfortunate thing with K-12s is that K-12 use them for A, B, C, and D grading, right? For vet, we can use them for competent, not yet competent, right? So it's very much a yes or no. So in other words, creating that outcome and creating just a yes, no really, I think, makes it a lot easier to mark and provides those guides that you actually need to show. There's also going to be another little cheeky feature option that I will mention that's coming a little bit later, which will help showcase the reasons why I want to use this. But to me, I think outcomes are probably the most underrated and underused thing that we use in this particular sector, purely because there's never been a real reason to use it. But I think using new quizzes and having an outcome aligned to an individual quiz question, it's automatically graded based on that student's result. You're actually killing two birds with one stone. Sorry for any bird lovers out there. I think that's something that you need to consider in the scale. The also thing is you can take that outcome across your entire instance. Okay. Like everywhere. And that's something that's going to be really, really important for you. Obviously, there's also increased reporting. There's the outcome export report, which takes into account your entire instance. And also you have the outcome analysis report, which is available per quiz as well. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Si. You're killing it, mate. Thank you so much. So now we're going to just walk off the administration. Oh, we've got one last thing. Letter grades. Just once again, I mentioned terms relates to K-12, okay? How it relates to. I want you to understand letter grades, as it says, traditionally mean A, B, C, D, and E. Okay? We know that letter grades can also be used to create satisfactory, not yet satisfactory. So my question is, how many people actually use a letter grading scheme in their instance? Okay. Yep. Okay. You can say, no, you don't as well. Like there's no right or wrong answer to this. This is the reason why we are talking about this for billing at scale. Okay. So a grading scheme is not A, B, C, D, and E. Okay. It's just basically we are choosing a grading scheme that best represents what we need to do. Now, my most popular one is creating a grading scheme of satisfactory, not yet satisfactory, and competent, not yet competent, where competent is 100% to 99.9% and 99.8% to 0 is not competent. Okay. Works really well unless you've got a quiz that's got more than 100 points. All right. Because then the percentages start playing around with themselves. But the reason why I bring this in is because it actually reshapes the gradebook. We don't actually look at marks as such. We look at competent, not yet competent. The reason why I'm telling you all this is at the end, second half of this year, I can say that, can't I, Si? I'm pretty sure that's what we were talking about yesterday, is that there is going to be the creation of letter grade only. Okay. In other words, numbers won't exist if you don't want them to. Now, really key to understand that. No student management system in the world knows what an A means. No student management system in the world knows what competent or not yet competent means. But every student management system world knows what 10 out of 10 means. Okay. So what this functionality will actually enable you to do is inside letter grades, actually go competent means this 100%. Okay. But what it will show in the gradebook is just the letter grade. There will be no numbers, right? This makes it really, really clear and concise for your students to understand what they are doing. Couple that with the Learning Mastery Gradebook as well. They'll see what elements they're not actually achieving, or they're like, okay, I don't understand that particular concept. This is due to come out in the second half of this year. For those of you that are using, say, complete, incomplete, tick and cross, right? You might be using that as well. You will need to go in and create a letter grade. So those of you who are already using a letter grade scheme, this will just be an additional option on top of that. This is something that you could set up very quickly and easily right now. So when this particular feature option comes out, it will be a small adjustment. You don't need to add it to your courses because it will naturally flow down into all of them as well. Okay. So that's something that's really, really important. I'm also going to put an article up on the community about this because I think it's something that's very simple and easy you can do from the get-go. But does everyone understand that concept? Because I know a lot of vocational education organizations get upset with like seeing numbers. Is that a fair analogy? Yes? No? Adam, you're talking too much? because I think, oh, sorry, Marita, you go.
I was just going to say it'll make our compliance teams very happy as well, because we have quite structured template instructions around some of our things. So we use complete or incomplete, obviously, as much as we can. And we have to say, well, you know, a satisfactory attempt is will be marked as complete or will be marked as 10 out of 10. So now it can just be complete or satisfactory or not. So
yeah, and that's exactly what it's going to do. So instead of having the number and the letter grade scheme like at the same time, it's going to be like, you scored 100%, you get competent. That's all they say. The other thing I will say about this particular role, this particular letter grade only, is that it's actually role based. So in other words, if the teachers need to see the numbers, they can. But if you don't want the students to see the numbers, you can apply it directly to them as well. So it's actually going to be a role permission based. So in other words, you can choose based on their enrollment status in the course, what you want them to see, which I actually thought about it. I was like, why? And then I actually thought about it. I said, actually, that's really smart. Like, look, Marlene, I would love to talk about this more. I've literally seen 4 screenshots of it. Okay. So this is something that I would love to be able to dive into it a little bit deeper. But all I know is that it's going to form off the letter grades that we already have set up, which is something that you can set up today. Okay. Oh yeah, we'll definitely be doing something on it, because that's going to be a huge thing for the area. All right. How's everyone going? I assume everything's quiet because everyone's brain is just sucking this in, or I'm just boring you all to tears. All right. So feel free to, you know, throw any banter. I know Igor's usually pretty good at it. It's probably already started. So that's fine. Right. Here comes the moment of truth. And we talked about this earlier. Build on last attempt is coming to new quizzes. In order to do that, you need to transition to new quizzes. That is not as straightforward as it sounds. Second half of this year, Lisa. So the whole point of our transition to new quizzes is we shifted our thinking. Was it late last year, Si, with the new product team, or was it late last year or early this year?
Late last year.
Late last year. Is that instead of forcing a change to new quizzes, we were going to enhance new quizzes in order to make it better and more attractive to move to that. Obviously, build on last attempt is a massive bonus for the vocational education sector, as in there are a lot of Q3, Q4. Let's just keep it a bit broad in the chat. Is that we really need to ensure that people, if you're moving to new quizzes, how does it look? How does it react? How do my trainers and assessors know how to use it? The students, they have a much better experience. There's never been a problem with new quizzes from a student experience point of view. It's mostly been from the admin and the moderation point of view. So the biggest question I have there is that at the present moment, you have the ability to like take one Canvas question in classic quizzes and turn it into new quizzes. Okay, that ability already exists. My question to you is, though, is that there are 3 to 4 more different quiz types in new quizzes that you don't get in classic quizzes. So that's why that question I'm asking you there, is this the time to transition to new quizzes or rebuild with a different teaching and learning mindset and vision in mind, right? For instance, that's why I've already suggested outcomes. If you've got the outcomes already, you can pull them in when you build these quiz questions, right? So my question is to you, I understand this is a lot of change, but my question is going to be to you is your vision, as we originally mentioned, is like, we're not just doing this for today, we're doing this for in the future. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to do some hard work early. My question to you is deciding how are we going to do this and how long that's going to take, okay? Because ideally, when build on last attempt comes in, I'd imagine it's going to be a toggle within the actual quiz. You would already have new quizzes set up, right? So the key thing is making sure that we get there. Oh, Si, you are on fire. Thanks, mate. Now, the benefits of this and moving to new quizzes, and some of these have already been released. Okay, so the first one is you've got flexible marking options. Don't know if anyone saw this sneak up in the product blog, but you currently can mark by student. Okay, so student, here are their 10 questions. You can now also mark by question. So question 2, you can go through all the question 2s of all the people in your class. Okay, so that's a shift in marking mindset and assessing mindset. Okay, so in other words, you could say, hey, I want this person to mark these 4 things. I want this person to mark these 4 things. These are really great to do. Build on last attempt is only coming to that, and letter grader only functionality is only coming to new quizzes as well. All right, so here are some reasons for you to help think about that transition. Leveraging off outcomes. One of the biggest things also is stimulus questions. Okay, the ability to put up one artifact and ask multiple questions to that artifact is also very handy. For those of you who want to link it externally, the new RCE editor is actually back on in new quizzes in beta and will hopefully be rolled out with this, with the next rollout as well. So that's really good news for you as well. It's also got safeguards in it. For those of you who use blueprints and who've spoken to me about it, really important is that with a blueprint, when it's sending downstream, new quizzes actually locks that original student's attempt, right? It doesn't overwrite like classic quizzes does. So that's something that's really important and really important to you, especially if you're going to get audited. There's also some really other cool things coming, alignment summaries and individual course pacing. So those of you who know what course pacing is, which is the ability to go, this student starts here, 2 weeks, they get this assessment, 4 weeks, they get this assessment, 6 weeks, they get assessment. At the moment, you can only do that via the course or the sections. This will actually be changed in a future release, so you can actually tailor this for individuals, which is huge. Okay, so that's a really important part and consideration to have as well. I'm making Sai work for his keep today. He's having an absolute ball. Does that get everyone excited about new quizzes? I understand there are some legacy people here, and I understand there's been some problems in the past. I totally get it. I totally get it. But the one thing is that new quizzes is the future of what we are doing. Its arrival is inevitable. The really good thing about it is you get to choose when this comes in. Okay. And also, Paul, just for your sake, the new APIs, they're coming out too. Okay.
It's already done.
Not all of them, most of them. Not all of them. So more fun for you anyway. That coupled with Canvas Starter 2 is going to be a lot of fun. Yes, that's the thing, Colleen, time. Planning this time. And that's why I'm going through things like terms, sysids, like all this sort of stuff, because if you preset all that, we can then build these things at scales. Item banks as well will be your savior as well, developing and sharing those. So people can build different elements at different times, share that together, release it into courses as well. Gradebook and Markbook. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Everybody knows what the Gradebook is. If you haven't found the Gradebook, clearly not assessing people, that's a bigger problem that you need to address. All right, I'm not even going to go down that. But some really interesting things have come in recently. The first one is submit on behalf of students. Has anyone turned this on yet?
This is my favourite thing by far, Adam. This gets our naysayers, the people that said, no, I can't use it because. And it's also amazing for really complex observations. So there are some of our observations that a rubric just can't do. And the other day that I was actually turned around, so what we do is we have a blank observation checklist there, we submit it on behalf of the student. So if you're remote, if you're doing forestry or something and data's a problem or anything like that, and it works better on your device when you spin it around and use it as like a tablet and use a stylus. Like, so when you write, it converts your writing to text. It's actually, yeah, it's changed everything for us.
I don't need to say anything more. There you go.
Sorry, I got really excited.
No, I mean, I think Marita, when we eventually started talking this, I think it was like 12 months ago. Actually, no, it could be closer to 2 years. Is that the one thing that I really liked on submitted behalf of student is the use of video. The reason why I really like this is, say, for instance, you're using Canvas, the Speedgrader, and I'll get to that as an observation report, uploading a video of the student actually doing what they're asked to do, having the observation report next to it, it really creates a really good feedback loop, right? Because they can actually see what they're doing and you're providing that feedback live. I never understand the point of an observation report where all the auditor was doing was checking that the form was filled in correctly. Like, I was like, what are you checking? Are you checking that they can sign their own name? Like, I never understood the concept of it. Please, that's me not coming from a vet RTO world background. But I think that if you can provide more evidence, especially around the students, you could even upload the observation reports in there as well, right? Like the actual manually filled out ones as well. So that's something that's really cool. That's on live now. That is a permission that you need to turn on as an account admin. Enhanced Gradebook. If you have not turned this on, please do it right now. Okay, this is a feature option. You can turn this on. What does it have? It has increased filtering options. You can choose by so much vastly different options. For instance, you can go by modules. You can go by marking periods. You can go by assignment groups. You can go by student groups. You can go by status. You can go via submissions. Really good if you want to like go to a course and go like, who haven't I marked? Okay, sweet. Who has got, whose grades haven't been posted, or ungraded submissions? Okay. Start and end dates. Really important. Say, for instance, they mark everyone for this week. They can start the next week. Who submitted in the last week? I need to mark those. This is absolutely huge. How many attempts will a student have? Okay, that might take a little bit longer than what I was hoping. That is something that's going to be really, really, really important. The other one is letter grade only. Once again, as well, will only work with this functionality. Trust me, turn it on. The other thing that's really cool is that any filters you create can be saved per user per course. You don't have to go back and recreate it. Okay. There's also some other ones that I suggest you turn on or look at in your feature options. The first one is view unmarked as 0 in the Markbook. This is a view only permission. It actually just changes the total column in the far right-hand column, to actually show what the student's done over all their assessments, not just what their result is of the assessments they've done. Okay, very, 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 very handy. The other one is, and you can practice around with this, is apply score to unmarked, which means that you can go back through your entire assessments, give everyone a 0 until they've submitted something, which will then showcase that total column. I have severely lost track of time, so I'm going to start speeding through this. Speedgrader. Okay, Marita, you spoke a little bit about this as well, so you can feel free to jump in as well. But some really cool product enhancements that I think you should turn on. Emojis. Don't be the fun police, all right? Like, seriously, embrace it, okay? We've got rid of most of the naughty ones, okay? Like the eggplants are not there, okay? That's all gone and out of the way. But what you can do as well as an admin, you can control what emojis you want your people to see and use, okay? So you can control that from the admin perspective. But it's a really great way to just help that relatable with your student. If they want to speak in emojis, I currently live in Asia. We live on WhatsApp, okay? There's a lot of different languages floating around. Emojis transcend all of that and makes communication very easy and very well done. The other one I will get you to turn on, and Marita, you're a big advocate of this one as well, is assignment enhancements for student. Who has turned this on? If you haven't, do it.
We definitely have this one on, Adam. It's amazing because what you can actually do is they can actually track the history of the rubric. So whereas before you could you rubric and you could just see it and that was it. Now you can click on each attempt and find out if it was a progression that the student's gone through. So it's not satisfactory, working on it, satisfactory, whatever it is, they can see per attempt, whereas before they could only see the latest selection. So it's really important.
Yeah. So the key flip that I will say for this is that previously, if you haven't got this turned on, you were giving feedback to the assignment, irrelevant of the attempt. You could go back and see previous attempts, but the feedback was one continuous line. By turning on this, you are actually saying, here are the versions of the submission. My feedback directly relates to that submission. Why is this important? Because once we've broken it down like this, the student can now go back and see all their previous attempts, not just their last one. They can go back and see the last 4 if you want to give them 5 attempts. If they're not confident after 5, we might have some other bigger problems to deal with. But what I'm trying to say to you is that you're individually breaking that down so they can see their previous work. They can transcend that. They can keep working towards their ultimate goal as well. Course pacing enhancements. I've mentioned this before. This will be linked directly to this functionality. Colleen, I know you don't use it. That's even more of a reason to turn it on, because if you go to use it, that'll be your default. Perfect. It doesn't change much from the trainers and assessors point of view, but the user interface for the student is far superior. Okay. And I think Marita, you can probably speak to that as well. It's much more of a new quizzes kind of vibe for students.
Yeah, no, it's much more attractive. The other really good thing too is with the course pacing, it does save a lot of administration time for the teachers, because it's like, so if you've got licensed outcomes or licensed courses and things like that, that have like really quite strict dates, due dates and things like that, that certainly helps with that. So our teachers that work in those trades areas love it.
Awesome. Awesome. And last but not least, if you haven't turned this on yet, please do. Please turn on the comment library. Your assessors will love you. Like literally, like they don't have to write the same thing over and over again. Click that response. Yes, I want to write this. Really good as well if you've got recognition of prior learning and you need to say, excuse a student from an assignment, you can give them the reason why. You say, yeah, you've already been excused from this assessment because of recognition of prior learning. That's all you need to say. Yes, that's also very awesome as well. If you're also a Chrome user, you can also use voice to text. That's also something that's very, very handy as well. Okay, is anybody else tired or is it just me? I'm seeing lots of smiles. Is everyone happy with this? This is like from the feedback we had at the end of last year. This was like, we wanted more practical, proactive things. Now, Paul's about to say something. This will be good.
I just wanted to sum up and say, I think that what we're seeing here is a lot of really awesome features that are making Canvas more vet specific than ever before, which is really wonderful to see as a vet practitioner, of course.
That's awesome. And that, as I said to you, and as I explained in our last couple, you could see, like if you look at the state of higher education, that was from NORAM, you could see that there was a shift. It was no longer based on that traditional education. And for those of you who have known me, I'm approaching 5 years here. One of the biggest things that we had is that the shift in that learning for clients will bring a shift to the product. And that's what we're seeing now. Okay, so we're about to get the rewards of the efforts that we've gone through. So I'm going to keep this super quick. But the first thing is, has everyone heard of admin analytics here? Has everybody turned it on? If you haven't, please, please, please turn it on. So you will notice that it is an account setting that will appear in your feature option here under admin analytics. Simply turn this on. From there, you will get a new item in your root account. Also, your sub accounts as well. So it's really important to say that this now cascades down with your sub account structures. Please ignore the lack of data in mine. This is my test instance. This is where I play and break stuff when Paul and Marita send stuff to me. So like, it's not really probably got all the best details in it, but you now have got the option to see how people and I mean people, I mean students and teachers are performing across your instance. Now, you may have mentioned earlier, I mentioned sub-accounts, I mentioned terms, I mentioned courses. Why is that important? These are search criteria. I can choose multiple criteria trying to find out. I can even search by the teacher. Woo! I know there's a few assessors that got a little bit like, what do you mean you can find out what I'm doing? But anyway, that's a story for another time. So you can actually go through and apply these filters, refine these filters as well. There are a number of different options here. Everything you can now do, you can obviously export and download as a CSV as well, okay? These are generic. Every person who has a Canvas instance has access to this. There are 3 main dashboards. The first one is overview, okay? The second one is course. And as you can see, I've got no data in here, really bad example. And lastly, the third one is student, okay? At the moment, this only contains information from the 1st January to the 30th, to today, okay? I believe as of the end of June, this particular data set will go back for your entire history since you've been with Canvas. This is when terms are important. This is when sub-accounts are important. This is when SysIDs are important, right? That's why I'm saying having that and starting to reflect back in time, you can leverage off this even better. And Paul, as excited as you are, I know about Canvas Data 2, is that this will be plugged into CD2 by the end of June as well. So what does that mean for all of you? Instead of waiting on a 24-hour refresh, you'll be looking at 6 to 8 hours. And that also goes for course analytics as well. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And so I took the words right out of my mouth there. There is a whole user group section set up on the Canvas community for new admin analytics. How to use this particular tool is also in your Canvas community admin guides as well. Go and have a play. It's super fun. It's super good. And this will eventually replace the old analytics as well. As I mentioned, Canvas Data 2 is slowly beginning to get rolled out. Those of you who had Canvas Data 1 and were using Canvas Data 1, you are already on a list. We are progressively turning on CD2 for you. You will get an email from your CSM. For those of you who are not big data experts, unlike Paul, who likes going in and breaking all this sort of stuff because that's what Paul does best. Yeah, Paul's your man. If any Canvas data questions, just send them. Don't even send them to me, just send them straight to Paul. Okay, I literally check out. Is that this is a big shift away from traditional CD1. Even if you don't use big data or you don't have access to Canvas Data 2, you will notice the difference shortly in the latency of how often the reports are coming through. Okay, everything will progressively start speeding up as well. So really important thing, if you have any third-party apps such as like IntelliBoard or Octopus BI or whatever like that using off that, they will need to change the data sets as well, because at the moment, CD1 is scheduled to be turned off at the end of the year. I say that with a bit of apprehension because that's probably going to change, but not because of you, it's probably because of our big other clients. Next thing as well, the new RCE editor returns to new quizzes. If you'd like to go into your beta instance, you can actually see that live now. There is a really great blog post. I'm sure Sai will probably find it and send it in there as well, just explaining what's available with this new RCE editor as well. Also, grade by question is also available now as well. That's going to be really, really good. The Gradebook, you can also sort assignments by excused submissions and unposted grades, as I showcased to you earlier. Why is this really important? I know a lot of people, assessors get lost. They don't know what they need to do, right? They don't know where they need to mark or where they need to be. Adding these searchable features means we can go in and go, yeah, I need to know what happened in this particular week, right? I need to find all the people who have, say, posted or have submitted an assessment in this week that require my marking, okay? Really strong searchable ways for them to do that. And last but not least, who uses the RCE icon maker? If anyone, I'm going to be pretty shocked if I get any yeses to this, just quietly. Tried it. Cool. Okay. Not entirely. Yep. No, this is a vibe. I was expecting this. This is me not being surprised. So the RCE icon maker was actually designed to help bring consistency into your course design using Page's RCE moment. The really cool thing about this particular one is that if you update the icon now, you can update it everywhere. Okay. You don't need to go through each individual page and update them. Update once, update many. Okay. That's going to be something that was brought in as part of the feedback to help make life easier. Wow, that was a lot for an hour. Now, you may be like, that's a lot to digest. As I always suggest, if you do have any other questions and you want to follow up any items that we've talked about today, please book in a time with your CSM. Marita, Nikki would know everything that we've just been through today as well. So if you want to ask any other further questions, Paul, anybody else who works, who's part of the PS APAC team, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to discuss these further to you. Next time around, I'm got some pretty funky stuff because Ruth Thornton, who's actually the product manager of APAC, has actually got some really good product enhancements, even further to this, that we're going to discuss in next month's user group. And also how we're going to actually go through and how to hack those in order to use them best for vocational education providers. Okay. So there's going to be things like, we'll have more obviously discussion about course pacing. There's going to be also a feature option called Canvas for Elementary. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but there's some things that have changed in there which make it far more attractive for usage in the vocational education space. Number one, they changed the font. Those of you who've played around with it, the font was terrible. It's now back to normal. So we're going to take Ruth down a journey and help you explain from a product perspective. And for those of you who may not know Ruth, Ruth previously worked for a vocational education provider before coming to work for Canvas, and is very skilled and very much understands the market as well. So she's going to provide a lot of context to this discussion as well. So thank you everyone for attending. I'm literally out of breath, which is pretty rare for me, to be perfectly honest. Marita and Paul, thank you once again for your insights. I do apologize. This was probably more of a talking one for me, just purely because a lot of the information we literally found out yesterday. So that was all part of the plan. And I obviously didn't want to bother anyone with long weekends, Anzac public holidays, and those sorts of things as well. So if anyone has any questions or anything like that, I'm just going to stop the recording now.